The Galactic Council chamber was filled with laughter. Alien delegates from dozens of empires sat in their towering seats, their expressions ranging from amusement to outright mockery. At the center of it all stood a lone human representative, Ambassador Elias Carter. He remained calm, his face betraying no emotion as the room echoed with insults aimed at his species. "This is a waste of time," a reptilian Zirek warlord sneered. His scales shimmered under the artificial lights, his long snout curling in contempt. "Why do we even allow these creatures to speak in our presence? They are weak, primitive, and have no place among us." A deep chuckle rumbled from the massive, armored form of a Gorthar general. "Indeed, they still rely on outdated technology. Their warships are like relics from a forgotten age. Their military is laughable." The laughter grew louder. A few smaller species, eager to gain favor with their powerful overlords, joined in, whispering their own insults. The council had gathered to discuss Earth's place in the galactic hierarchy, but the meeting had turned into nothing more than an opportunity for the powerful empires to ridicule humanity. Elias Carter slowly exhaled, his fingers tightening around the datapad in his hands. He had expected this. Ever since humanity had made contact with the wider galaxy, they had been treated as an insignificant species. To these empires, strength was the only thing that mattered. And humanity, in their eyes, had none. The Zirek warlord stood up, his golden armor gleaming. "I propose we end this discussion. The Dominion has already made its decision. We will expand our territory, and if that means Earth must fall under our rule, so be it." He turned his gaze directly toward Carter, his reptilian eyes cold. "Your people should be honored. The Zirek Dominion only enslaves species with potential." The chamber erupted in applause. Some delegates nodded in agreement, while others whispered amongst themselves, pleased that someone had finally said what they were all thinking. Elias finally spoke. His voice was calm, measured. "You assume too much, Warlord Varzan. Humanity does not belong to you, and it never will." The laughter returned, this time louder than before. The idea that humans could resist the Zirek Dominion was so absurd that even the more neutral factions couldn't help but smirk. "You truly do not understand, do you?" the warlord said, stepping forward. "You have no fleets capable of challenging us, no armies that can match our strength, no weapons that can pierce our defenses. What exactly do you think you can do?" Elias held his gaze. "You think you know everything about us, but you don't." A moment of silence settled over the room. The Zirek warlord narrowed his eyes. "And what is that supposed to mean?" Elias took a slow step forward, standing tall despite being surrounded by beings far larger and stronger than himself. "Humanity has been underestimated before," he said. "Every time, those who did so lived just long enough to regret it." The Gorthar general grunted in amusement. "You dare threaten us, human?" "I am not threatening anyone," Elias said simply. "I am giving you a chance. Leave Earth alone. Walk away while you still can." The warlord's lips curled into a snarl. "You are in no position to demand anything, Ambassador. The Dominion does not negotiate with those beneath us." Elias sighed, shaking his head slightly. "That's unfortunate." With that, he turned and began walking toward the exit. The murmurs in the room grew as delegates whispered amongst themselves. His complete lack of fear unsettled some of them. Others simply found it amusing. As he reached the doorway, Elias paused and glanced back over his shoulder. "You think we are weak? Come and see for yourselves." Then, without another word, he left the chamber. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the Zirek warlord let out a low chuckle. "Foolish," he muttered. He turned to his generals. "Prepare the invasion fleet. I want Earth under our control within the cycle." The chamber erupted in approval, but beneath the noise, a few of the older, wiser alien leaders remained quiet. They had seen too many wars to be so confident. There was something about the human ambassador's tone, the way he did not plead or argue, that unsettled them. One of them, an elder from the neutral Velari collective, leaned toward his colleague and whispered, "I do not think this will end the way they expect." But the Zirac Dominion had already made its choice. Their warships were on the move, and soon they would learn the true cost of their arrogance. The Zirac Dominion's war fleet moved swiftly through space, its massive battleships blotting out the stars as they approached Earth. The invasion had been decided, and now nothing could stop it. Aboard the Zirac flagship, Dreadfang, Warlord Var-Zan stood on the command bridge, watching as Earth grew larger on the main display. His officers moved around him, preparing for the assault, their confidence unshaken. "The humans did not even bother to send a fleet to intercept us," one of his commanders sneered. "They truly are as weak as we expected." Var-Zan smirked. "Of course they are." Their ambassador's empty words were nothing but a pathetic attempt to delay the inevitable. He turned to his fleet's communication officer. "Begin broadcasting our message to Earth. Let them know their time is up." A deep mechanical voice echoed across the system as the Zirac transmission spread through human communication channels. "People of Earth, your leaders have failed you. You are now subjects of the Zirac Dominion. Surrender immediately, or be destroyed." The message repeated over and over, sent to every military base, every government facility, every major city. On Earth, panic spread like wildfire. Civilians rushed to find shelter, governments scrambled to respond, and the world held its breath. But in Earth's hidden war rooms, deep beneath fortified bunkers, the response was far different. They had been expecting this. General Catherine Mercer stood in a heavily guarded command center, watching as the enemy fleet moved closer. Around her, military strategists, officers, and scientists worked with calm precision. Unlike the fearful citizens above, these people knew what was coming. "They took the bait," Mercer said, her voice steady. "Just like we planned." A nearby officer nodded. "All enemy ships have moved within range." "Orders, ma'am." She allowed herself a small smile. "Hold position. Let them come closer." In orbit, the Zirac fleet assumed its final attack formations. Their landing craft were being prepped for deployment, and their ground troops were eager for battle. But as they moved into Earth's orbit, something changed. The warship's sensors began picking up strange signals, small distortions in space, almost imperceptible. At first, the Zirac commanders dismissed them as nothing more than interference from Earth's atmosphere. Then the alarms began. "Sir," a technician on Dreadfang shouted in alarm. "Unidentified energy signatures appearing all around us." Var-Zan turned sharply. "Explain." The technician's claws tapped frantically against the control panel. I don't know, Warlord. These readings, something is coming." A sudden tremor shook the ship. Across the fleet, similar disturbances rippled through the ranks. Before anyone could react, something massive emerged from the darkness of space. A single colossal warship, unlike anything the Zirac had ever seen before, materialized before them. It had no known markings, no identification codes. It should not have existed. The bridge fell into a stunned silence. The alien officers stared at the screen, struggling to process what they were seeing. Var-Zan's voice was dangerously low. "What is that?" The warship's sleek, angular design was unlike any human vessel the Zirac had ever encountered. Its hull was coated in a dark, shimmering metal that seemed to drink in the surrounding light. Strange energy pulsations ran along its structure, and most alarming of all, it was completely silent. No radio signals, no standard human transmissions, nothing. Then, without warning, the massive battleship's front section began to glow. The energy readings on Zirac scanners spiked beyond known limits. Var-Zan barely had time to shout an order before a single devastating blast erupted from the mysterious ship. In an instant, one of the Zirac capital ships, a vessel larger than Earth's entire moon base, was obliterated in a blinding flash of destruction. No debris, no explosion, just erased. The bridge of Dreadfang was in chaos. Alarms blared, officers shouted over one another, and Varzan himself was frozen in disbelief. This was impossible. No human weapon was supposed to be capable of such devastation. Another blast fired, then another. Each shot from the unknown warship eliminated a Zirek vessel, erasing them from existence with pinpoint accuracy. Panic spread through the Zirek fleet. "Warlord!" An officer cried out. "Our weapons are ineffective. Their ship, it is beyond our technology." Varzan's claws dug into the metal railing as he stared at the battle unfolding before him. This was no mere human fleet. This was something else. And for the first time in his long and brutal military career, he felt fear. The Zirek fleet, once confident in their superiority, was now in chaos. The massive, unknown human warship moved like a phantom through their ranks, its weapons erasing ships with terrifying precision. No matter how hard they tried, the Zirek couldn't land a single hit on it. Their targeting systems failed to lock on, their energy weapons fizzled against its hull, and their torpedoes simply vanished before impact. On the bridge of Dreadfang, Warlord Varzan struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. His officers shouted over one another, their usual discipline shattered by raw panic. "All forward batteries, fire at will." Varzan roared, "I don't care if you have to fire blindly. Destroy that thing." The Zirek ships obeyed, unleashing a devastating barrage of plasma and nuclear warheads. The darkness of space lit up with the fury of their attack. But when the energy faded, the warship remained untouched. Varzan's heart pounded. How? How was this possible? The answer came seconds later. The human warship vanished. Not in a hyperspace jump, not in a teleportation burst. It simply flickered and ceased to exist. Confused murmurs spread across the Zirek fleet. Had it retreated? Had it been a mere illusion? Some of the commanders began to recover from their panic, daring to believe they had somehow won. Then, one by one, the Zirek ships began to disappear. It started with the smaller vessels. A destroyer on the edge of the fleet simply blinked out of existence. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Seconds later, a battlecruiser suffered the same fate. The Zirek ships weren't being destroyed. They were being removed. Varzan's blood turned to ice. This wasn't warfare. This was extermination. A new signal appeared on the Dreadfang's communication systems. It wasn't Zirek. It wasn't from any known species. It came from the human warship. For the first time since the battle began, the humans spoke. A single voice, calm, controlled, and utterly devoid of fear, echoed across the Zirek fleet. "You were warned." The transmission ended, and then the true horror began. Without warning, Dreadfang itself shook violently. The lights flickered. The ship's artificial gravity failed, sending Zirek officers tumbling through the air. Sparks rained from control panels, and the walls groaned as if reality itself was bending around them. "Report," Varzan barked, gripping onto a nearby railing to steady himself. The chief engineer's voice was filled with terror. "Something is happening to our ship, Warlord. I don't understand. The engines are failing, the power core is fluctuating, and..." His voice cut off into a strangled scream. Varzan turned just in time to see the engineer disintegrate into nothingness. Not vaporized, not burned, simply gone. One by one, his crew began to vanish in the same manner. Officers, soldiers, technicians, they flickered out of existence, their screams lasting only a fraction of a second before silence claimed them. Varzan fought against the overwhelming dread that filled his chest. "No, I am Warlord of the Zirek Dominion. I will not fall to this trickery." Summoning all his strength, he lunged for the emergency escape pod controls. If he could just make it off the ship, he could regroup, warn the Dominion. But before his claws could reach the panel, he felt it. An icy sensation spread through his body, as if reality itself was unraveling around him. He tried to move, but his body refused to obey. His vision blurred, his surroundings darkened, and in that final moment, As the universe itself seemed to reject his very existence, he realized the truth. This wasn't a war. This was a message. And with that final, horrifying thought, Warlord Var-Zan ceased to exist. The battle was over, and humanity had won. The silence that followed was unnatural. The Zyrek fleet, once a proud and unstoppable force, had been erased from existence. There were no burning wrecks, no drifting debris, only an empty void where warships had once stood. From the shadows of space, the battleship remained, motionless and silent. Its dark hull shimmered with an unnatural energy, its mere presence an unspoken warning to any who dared to challenge humanity again. On Earth, the world watched in stunned disbelief. The battle had lasted mere minutes. The Zyrek fleet, the same fleet that had terrorized entire civilizations, had simply vanished. In the underground command center, General Catherine Mercer sat in silence, staring at the live feed from orbit. Around her, officers, scientists, and strategists were frozen in place, their minds struggling to process what had just happened. One of her aides finally found his voice. "Ma'am, did we just win?" Mercer finished for him. Her voice was calm, but her grip on the armrest of her chair was tight. She exhaled slowly. No, this wasn't a battle. This was a demonstration. Another officer turned to her, his face pale. "Ma'am, what have we created?" Mercer didn't answer. She knew the question wasn't just about the warship that had saved them. It was about the power it had just revealed. Power beyond Zyrek weapons. Power that broke the laws of physics. And most terrifying of all, power that humanity had kept hidden. A transmission came through the command center's private channel. Unlike the panicked broadcasts from before, this one was different. Secure. Direct. It came from the ship. The voice that followed was deep, controlled, and unmistakably human. "The threat has been neutralized. Earth is secure." The entire command room was silent. One officer hesitated before asking, "Who are you?" For a long moment, there was nothing but static. Then the voice returned. "We are the answer to the galaxy's arrogance." The transmission ended. Above Earth, the warship vanished once more, slipping into the void as if it had never existed. Across the galaxy, other alien empires, who had once mocked humanity, received the footage. And for the first time in history, they felt fear. The Zyrek Dominion's homeworld was a planet of towering black spires, endless military complexes, and an unshakable belief in their own supremacy. For centuries, they had expanded without resistance, crushing every lesser species that stood in their path. But today, the heart of their empire trembled. Inside the Grand War Chamber, the Dominion's highest-ranking warlords sat around a massive circular table, their reptilian faces filled with disbelief. Screens around them replayed the battle, if it could even be called that. The human warship had not fought in any traditional sense. It had simply erased the Zyrek fleet from existence. Gone, without a trace. Warlord Krelvok slammed a clawed fist against the table, his sharp teeth bared in frustration. "This is impossible. No species, not even the Tivash or the Urkin, has ever possessed such power." Across from him, Grand Strategist Yulmer's eyes were locked onto the screen, watching the human warship flicker in and out of existence. His voice was eerily calm. "Impossible or not, it has happened. The Zyrek Dominion has suffered its first true defeat." The chamber fell into silence. No one had a response. The Dominion had faced resistance before, but always from lesser species, civilizations still clinging to primitive war doctrines. They had never encountered anything like this. Warlord Krelvok turned to the intelligence officer standing at attention beside him. "Tell me we have some kind of explanation. Something." The officer hesitated. "We have examined the battle footage, but nothing makes sense. Their ship did not use any known form of propulsion. It defied detection, moved without inertia, and its weaponry." He stopped, as if struggling to say the next words. Krelvok narrowed his eyes. "Speak." The officer swallowed. It did not fire traditional weapons. There were no energy emissions, no projectile traces. Every ship that was destroyed simply ceased to exist. A ripple of unease spread through the warlords. This wasn't just superior firepower. This was something else, something that broke the very laws of reality. Yulmar's voice was quiet but sharp. And what of the humans? Have they sent any demands? Any ultimatums? The intelligence officer shook his head. None. They sent no declaration of war, no warnings beyond what their ambassador already stated. They simply acted. Krelvok growled. Then we must retaliate. We will send another fleet, twice the size of the first. No, 10 times. We will. Yulmar cut him off. And what if they erased those ships too? The war chamber fell silent once more, because the truth was inescapable. If the humans had more than one of these warships, if they had been holding back their true capabilities all this time, then the Zerak Dominion was standing at the edge of extinction. For the first time in their empire's history, the warlords did not know what to do. And across the galaxy, as news of the battle spread, other alien empires began to ask themselves a terrifying question. What else had humanity been hiding? Across the galaxy, the reaction to humanity's unbelievable victory spread like wildfire. Empires that had once scoffed at Earth now whispered in fear. Races that had dismissed humans as weak, fragile creatures now scrambled to reassess everything they thought they knew. And the Zerak Dominion, once the most aggressive power in the sector, had fallen silent. Inside the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council, representatives from hundreds of species gathered in a state of pure panic. Normally, the council was a place of political posturing, where threats were exchanged in the form of trade sanctions and diplomatic maneuvering. But today, there was no posturing. There was only fear. Chancellor Vroth, a towering Averkan with skin like molten steel, stood at the center of the chamber, his voice strained as he addressed the gathered leaders. We have all seen the footage. The Zerak fleet did not simply lose. It ceased to exist. If humanity truly possesses this power, then the balance of the galaxy has changed forever. A representative from the Urkan Confederacy, his fur bristling with anxiety, leaned forward. We must make contact with the humans. Now, we must understand the extent of their power before it's too late. An Uldari diplomat hissed in frustration. Contact them. Are you mad? What if they see it as a provocation? The Zerak attacked, and humanity responded without mercy. We must tread carefully. A nervous murmur spread through the chamber. The truth was undeniable. Nobody knew how to approach the humans anymore. The Uldari diplomat turned to the representative from Earth. The human ambassador sat in eerie silence, watching the debate unfold with an unreadable expression. At last, the ambassador stood. The room went deathly still. When the human spoke, there was no arrogance, no threats, just a simple, calm statement. Humanity has never sought war, but we do not fear it. The words sent chills through the council. The ambassador's gaze swept across the room, his voice steady. You have all spent decades mocking our kind. You have insulted us, belittled us, and underestimated us. And yet, we tolerated it. We endured it. His expression darkened, until the Zerak made the mistake of testing our patience, until they attacked our home. Silence. The ambassador leaned forward slightly, his next words a warning to all. We are not conquerors. We are not tyrants. But make no mistake, if any of you choose to follow the Zerak's path, we will respond accordingly. His eyes locked onto each representative in turn. And this time, we will not stop at your fleets. A heavy weight settled over the chamber. One by one, the representatives lowered their heads, not in defiance, but in recognition. The galactic order had changed, and humanity now stood above them all. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber was absolute. Humanity's ambassador had spoken, and his words still echoed through the minds of every representative present. The warning was clear. The Zirac Dominion had been the first to challenge humanity's patience, and they had vanished for their mistake. Now, the rest of the galaxy had a choice: peace or annihilation. For centuries, the great empires of the stars had dictated the course of history. They had viewed Earth as insignificant, another primitive world to be controlled, exploited, or ignored. But that era had ended. On the Zirac homeworld, the warlords, once proud and arrogant, stood in stunned horror before the latest transmission. It had not come from Earth's diplomats, nor from any known human leader. It had come from the Battleship. The same warship that had erased their fleets now loomed above their capital, casting a dark shadow over their once invincible empire. Its message was short, delivered in a voice devoid of emotion. This is your only warning. Submit or disappear. The Zirac, for all their centuries of conquest, knew in that moment that they were beaten. One by one, their warlords fell to their knees, surrendering not just their fleets, but their entire civilization. And across the stars, other empires watched in fear as humanity took its place as the undisputed power of the galaxy. But Earth did not celebrate. There were no parades, no declarations of dominance. Humanity had never sought conquest, only respect. And now, after centuries of mockery and underestimation, they had finally earned it. The great empires that had once laughed at humanity had now been silenced. Because when the battleship arrived, the galaxy had learned a truth it would never forget. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not to be mocked. And most of all, humanity would never bow to anyone.